So here we go. I will dominate and Doublelift's take. Let me make sure we've got a decent camera angle here. All right. So a little background, what's going on. So people are aware, right? We have the walk-off last week. We have the demands that are coming in. We already did a video on what we think of that and what we think would actually be shaping up the league. But I want to hear some takes from people that are prominent speakers in the vicinity. So 33 minutes. Here we go. Grab a drink, grab a snack.
All right, let's see Doublelift's take. What he agrees and disagrees with during the LCS walkout.
People want for me to talk about the whole walkout. I'll just read questions from chat, I guess. Do I agree with the walkout and the demands? Okay, so let me go through the walkout and the demand.
All right, so let's go over a quick little review here. Oh, nope. This is the announcement. I actually haven't seen this. The LCSPA has been aware of over a week of attempts to require teams to field scab players. Oh, no, we've seen this. All right, this is the plea to not cross the picket line because they're essentially on strike.
And I'll let you guys know. Blink twice if you're being held against your will. Nah. Why do I personally care about the demands? Okay, so these are the two questions I saw that I really like. So
now, here's why I think this is going to be interesting. Both of these guys are, in a way, sort of above the LCS in a different way. Like, I Will Dominate X player has a brand for himself. He's over here. Doublelift has been in and out of the league as this, like, you know, hot commodity. Yeah, you know, I'll play. Don't really care. I'll carry your team kind of attitude. Kind of taking a brash, brazen approach to everything. That's why I'm really hoping for some hot takes here.
I mean, let's just go through the timeline, okay? Riot killed the tier 2 scene. I'm going to call amateur or academy tier 2 because it's the easiest way to represent it. Okay, tier 1 is the highest.
All right, there's some random footage that they decided to put on his thing. Right off, I have to take issue with Riot did not kill the scene. Riot allowed teams to kill it. Teams killed their players. 7 out of 10 rosters blew up basically overnight. Riot allowed it, but teams did it.
This level within that region, that's LCS or LCK, and then tier 2 is a level below that, feeds into tier 1, okay? And you can be demoted and promoted, you know, between these two because it's still competitive, it's just a level below. So Riot killed tier 2, and they did, in my opinion, a really bad job in so many ways with how they approached it. So they didn't give anyone any notice. If you're going to make a decision like that, that's going to affect so many people's lives. People who've signed leases, people who've made plans, most importantly, people who've like situated themselves in a certain place, expecting their contract to ride out to the remainder. Like there's no sign that like tier 2 is going to be killed, and then all of a sudden, you know, all their lives are just completely uprooted and disrupted. It's like it's pretty fucked up. Like I don't care what really people say, it's still pro players, right? Like they're amateur players, but they're still professional players.
They're not amateur players. These are pro players, right? This is your you know, division, you know, they're AAA compared to Major League Baseball, right? This is a farm team. It's meant to be an association. If you're Cloud9 Academy or Cloud9 Challenger League, that is supposed to be your like system for bringing up talent. And you can have a mix of veterans that will show people how to be pros and young players that will come up through the system.
And definitely you deserve some level of like warning that your entire scene is going to be exterminated. Do I think that amateur or like, you know, tier 2 scene with challengers or what is it called, NACL?
I mean, I think this is fair. This is a fair point to make. But also, if you're not an idiot and you're playing in academy and you're seeing, damn, we're getting paid pretty good over here, bro. Like there was academy players that were making 400K in like 2020. If things are going that well, and then you look at the stream and you look at the viewership and you look at the hype and you watch like the Path to Pro Twitter account tweeting out that they have a match going live and there's 3 likes on the tweet. If you're somebody of like decent awareness, you should know that things are not going well and that.
Okay, I mean, we got to talk about this right away. It's not your job to be aware of whether or not things are going well. You're supposed to get your worth within the market, play well, do what you can to be the best pro you can. It is, in fact, as a coach, I would say, I don't want you as a player listening to any of that. I want you to come to work. I want you to be the best you can be, and I want you to be hungry to get better. That's it, right? These people should not be worrying about what their contracts are. And not to mention that this system is meant to feed, right? This is value added to your main roster. It does not need to be profitable in and of itself. It needs to help you gain and bottleneck your prowess and your pros, right? And all the skill to the top so that you can get stronger and stronger and start getting to new heights.
You know, you're on thin ice with the whole situation in general. Like, your job could probably not exist pretty quickly.
Was good? No, I think it was completely dog shit. Actually, I think the fact that the shittiest academy players are getting paid like, 70K and upwards, the worst academy players, the fact that the scene had almost no view.
All right, well, you do need a minimum salary for these players. And again, these teams are supposed to be riding this as a cost. And in fact, Riot gave teams almost $3 million to field these teams, right? This is supposed to be a null set for them where they can just operate this, help it feed in. It creates an extra avenue of viewership. It's not much, but it's feeding into the whole idea that the LCS can get better.
Viewership, but it was getting constantly pumped money into, just created so many problems. A lot of teams didn't want to be in it, but they're forced to be in it. That's not competitive. There's no competitive integrity in forcing teams to field rosters that they don't care about or want. Because they know that, like, the bottom line is they're not going to make any money on it. They're not incentivized to care about it because there's no skin in the game for them. So I think the fact that teams are being forced to have academy teams was always a stupid idea.
The fact that teams don't want to have an academy team is the stupid idea. Like, that's something that they need to be doing better with, right? You need to be investing in your own product, your pro team. If you can feed into it and funnel into it, that's an investment you want to make.
All 10 teams were willing and like they wanted it, but then as soon as multiple teams don't want that requirement, which happened 5 years ago, I don't think that it should have been a requirement. I think there would have been a way better system, natural selection, like. It's a competitive environment, so there's a whole bunch of problems. There's too much money in it.
Okay,
there's no returns.
Darwinian approach. I like it.
Created all these problems. Like, you guys hear about like contract jail for a lot of academy players, signing 3-year contracts, having ridiculous buyouts. That's how the team recoups. If you're in Oregon,
but the other side of the contract jail is the reason why these players were taking these contracts that had enormous buyouts is because there was enormous payouts as well. The reason that, like, Kenvy's buyout was so high and Tenacity's buyout was so high was because they were getting paid so fucking well to be in academy, so that, like, it was the only way the orgs could protect themselves when they're handing out that amount of money for an academy player. So, to be honest, it is what it is. Like, if it just goes with the contract that you're signing, it's not like these players are making $70K a year and their buyout is like $2 million or something. You know, that's
right. So you see this in soccer, right? Players will get contracts when they're like 14 years old just to stay in the system so that you retain the rights to them. That's how valuable it is for Real Madrid to have a 14-year-old phenom on their team, or Barcelona with Messi, for example. Messi as a kid was playing with Ronaldinho at his prime, and you have him in the system so that you own the rights to that player, and as they come up, then you can retain that value, and Messi actually outgrows the value that you paid him. So you give them this big contract and keep them in your system. If you have the plug to do it, then that's great. If not, if you don't have enough money to support this, then another team can get that great player, and it's still going to feed into the overall power of the LCS. If you're a great team that wants to keep someone like Tenacity on the sideline because you're like, man, we're not quite ready. Someday's really good, 100 Thieves. We're feeling pretty good about Someday and our roster going into Worlds, and we can continue to train Tenacity, but we don't want to lose the rights to him, then yeah, you need to give him a big contract, and he should have a big contract even though he's on the second tier. Just because he's the second best top laner on your team doesn't mean that he's not going to provide enormous wealth to your franchise by keeping him there and then playing him in pro if you do think he's going to be a superstar.
That's not what was happening.
You're spending 300, 400, 500K, and I'm not making these numbers up. Like, that is actually very normal to spend like 300 to 500K on your academy team. That's like honestly a minimum. Then how are you going to make any of that money back? You're not going to make it back. Sponsors don't give a fuck about academy. Doesn't matter if you have the best academy team. That's not
you make it back by becoming pro.
Okay,
yep.
That's so.
No one's
just
watching
throw
it.
that out of the window. You're not making any money off additional fans either. There are no fans of, for example, Cloud9 because their academy team is doing well. So how are you monetizing this?
Dignitas did try to make an academy team full of 5 ex-streamers, right? They had like the ex-pros that became streamers and made a team out of it and tried to make profit that way. and even that didn't work.
Situation that you've been forced into. Realistically, guys, it's by contract jailing and having ridiculous buyouts on your players. So, like, if you are in academy, the way you're going to recoup that money is by selling your best players to an org, and you're going to sell this academy player's contract that goes for like 60K, for like 500K, because that is the only way that you can even be remotely breaking even for that year in academy. So.
Yeah, but that's so narrow, right? He's talking about the academy team, again, trying to make its own money, and that's not the point, right? You are supposed to gain the player. I'm going to use the tenacity example a lot, right? You've got Busio. You've got a lot of guys that have come up through academy, but the point is they're supposed to get better and make your franchise better, and that's where you get the ROI, right? The return on investment.
So how is that good for anybody? If I was an academy player personally, I would feel...
And Doublelift is going to have a slanted view from this because he's never had to go through this, right? He's been a pro since season 2 with time on and off, but he's just always been there, and he's always considered himself the very best player that NA has ever had at all times. So he's going to have a very slanted view on this.
I feel like this fucking sucks. If I join a team and I do well, there's a pretty high chance...
Well, I'll tell you, the way you're supposed to recoup that money is you're supposed to be developing players for your own team, and you take academy at a loss in order to create like a better team for yourself, and then you're supposed to develop that talent, go international, have your new players pop off, gain fans because of that, new revenue streams, potentially like a deep run at Worlds, makes the league more popular, then more people are watching LCS, then you just like gain more revenue from the LCS itself. Like that's the idea. Like I don't think you're supposed to be running academy profitably. You're supposed to be trying to create more value for your own team in the future.
Spot on.
Team is going to be willing to let me go is for a ridiculous buyout, which is going to dilute the roster that I'm on by taking away their budget, or just completely block my chances of joining an LCS team, because that is the only way for the team to make it financially make sense to let me go. That sucks. The only reason that you would be happy as an academy player, which is a pretty big one, is like, yeah, the paycheck. So, you know, with all that being said, I thought the old system was complete. It was a complete failure, but I think the new system that Riot proposed is just as bad, and it's not acceptable. I do think that Tier 2 actually does matter. You know, I played with Busio, I played with Tenacity. These players came up from Academy. Many players came up from Academy. I think it's important that there is a Tier 2 scene also for community, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just like optics, you know? Like, people say, why would I care about LCS when LCS, you know, Riot doesn't care about the future of the league because they're not supporting Tier 2. It just feels like shit. I don't think...
I mean, Riot not supporting Tier 2 is a myth, right? They give teams a stipend up to $3 million for this. And this is just part of the revenue share and stimulus to get teams to help. It's kind of not paying back, because all of these teams paid at least $10 million to get into the LCS to start. That was the franchise fee that these teams had to do, and they had to show that they've got the revenue to pay players and to make things. The problem is most of them, and especially teams like TSM, just put it all in the top. Right, they spend $2 million on Sword Art, and then they say, you know, F it for the second tier team, and or they just say, hey, we've got no money left over. It doesn't matter. We'll put 5 scabs here. It doesn't matter what's happening here. We can just go buy international talent. But that's showing like where NA has an issue. It's sort of the same way that MLS had an issue, where you're just like, let's just take David Beckham, 6 years removed from his prime, and bring him to Los Angeles Galaxy, right? And that's good for sales, ticket sales, and some jersey sales. But did the Galaxy get any better? No. Like, MLS got better once it started actually fueling its own team and moving up. Yes, you bring in a couple international players here and there, because the brand value of a name is very potent, like Thierry Henry, David Beckham, players like this. But largely, if you actually want to improve as a country and as a region, then you have to fuel your system going forward. You can't just continuously buy the best players. There are a few counters to this, but they still feed some of their own players. So you look at New York Yankees, LA Dodgers, Manchester United, Real Madrid, Barcelona. So like basically 5 of the richest franchises in all of sports that got there because they won before this was such a thing, right? Before you could just buy every single player. They got huge fan bases, which allowed them to pay for basically any player they want. But you see, like, how many championships have the Yankees won in the past 50 years, right? It's not even close to what they won in the 50 years before that. So I would argue that this system doesn't really work, and you see that like there's rifts even on great teams like Real Madrid. They're having major rifts with battles with racism and things like this. There's just no continuity between these teams if you're just plugging in players. And in the LCS, you might even have a language barrier, right? At least in soccer, those players, a lot of those guys speak 6 languages and they can communicate with each other on day one. And if they can't, they figure it out immediately. In the LCS, sometimes you have teams that were like, what was the worst case example? We had like Danish new to English, but okay English, plus 2 Korean, plus Chinese or something like that. And it's like, how are you expecting this team to gel when they can't even communicate with each other?
I think any, LCS players should be happy with that because it just makes our league look even more of a joke. International performances bad, but then also like we're the only region without a tier 2 scene. That's just gonna kill people's hype for our league like even harder. LCS Academy filled with washed up pros. I mean, that's because 10 teams are required to field an academy team, and there are not really like 50 good amateur players.
That's not true. There are 50 good amateur players. You should just be investing in your 16 to 20-year-olds that aren't there yet. You don't need to have the very best player to make, like, let's say the LCS has the 50 best players in the region, which is not true. But your team doesn't need to be the next 5 best players. Your team needs to be, how do I make my main roster better? So it should be looking at the future, maybe one ex-pro that has good leadership qualities and that can teach people how to become a pro, and 4 other people that are coming up. Now that's if you have team A and team B, which I think is a bad system anyways. You should just have 10 to 15 players that is your team. You give 5 of them a chance to play on Thursday night in the Challenger League, just so that they can get stage experience, right? Because you're developing them as pros. And again, you can put one very experienced player with a leadership role there to help these players understand what it's like to be under pressure on stage. You get the heartbeat, get all these things, and just the game is different on stage. You put one leadership player there, you put 4 new players there, and every once in a while you get someone that's going to grow up and make it to your LCS roster, right? And these teams should be practicing against themselves. Your 5 best versus your 5 next best, that's fine. You can also mix and match. You can say, hey, I want my jungle support mid to really work on their synergy. Throw them on the B team and have them against the A team, where you just mix this up, and you can create drills where you balance the playing field as far as competitive integrity, but you can isolate players and say, I don't want you to lean on your jungler coming here. I want you guys to work this out on your own. You're going to play against this other team that's got the support of a better jungler. And there's so many scenarios that you can do that are better than what exists here.
To be honest, like I said, it's like people just didn't really care about, like, the teams don't really care.
They just went, it's like, get us some clips of washed up pros. we got Ryoma, we got Tommy, we got Smoothie, we got Gamsu. God damn, they didn't even have to look that hard.
About having a strong academy team or not. If anything, academy existed just to have like a potential like backup for your main roster. I just don't
That's not
think
true. I mean, I don't disagree that teams may have treated it that way, but that is not what it should be.
Purpose that people really wanted academy to serve. Let's see what the LCSPA came back with. Okay, so the talks started between Philip, and I was in pretty constant communication with Philip before the vote. These are the demands, and when I read the demands, I was honestly a little bit disappointed.
They're supposed to be showing a united front. This is very bad when your most iconic player in the league is saying, I'm disappointed in the demands. That's not a good look.
Because I feel like these demands are either unreasonable or just like not the right way of
Wait, what the?
All right, so I agree that these demands are bad, but this is very, very bad when you're the league's most prominent player is saying that they're bad.
Wait, he's going in like that? Wait, Doublelift.
Dom's about to agree with me.
Wait, he's saying that. Wait, doesn't this just completely kill the LCSPA's like complete negotiating power? The whole thing that the LCSPA was supposed to be doing is like, we got all of our players together, strength in numbers, we're going to deny labor, and because of us denying labor, you're going to be forced to make a decision. And then he just comes here and he's like, actually, I don't even give a fuck with about these like
I mean, this is Doublelift. It's been his entire career to like say what's on his mind, anyways. But like, this is just as tone deaf as the asks of Riot, right? I agree that these are bad, but like, they should be pissed. And if the PA holds any sway, they should be able to fine a player for saying stuff like this, because this is hugely detrimental to their brand.
These LCSPA asks, I don't even care about these, requests by the LCSPA. And in 2 weeks, I'm just gonna be down to play LCS again. So like, what? Fuck, I love Doublelift, bro. I love Doublelift. Shit. How base is this guy?
Coming to the table with something that everyone should want. Valorant style promotion relegation. What does Valorant style mean? This does not mean that players, that teams can be kicked out of tier 1. This really means
means that so the Valorant style is they add in, they do a split of NACL, then they add in the top 2 teams of NACL into the LCS, and then there's like these 2 provisional slots, and then out of those 2 provisional slots, then teams can move up and down, but only those 2 teams that
You can't do that because 10 teams invested on being the 10 teams. There's no way this happens.
got in could be relegated. You wouldn't actually be able to relegate any of the 10 franchise teams.
Like, for example, you guys might be thinking promotion and relegation means the bottom 2 teams in LCS can be relegated out of LCS. Well, then where did their $10 million investment go? They pay $10 million, hand that over. What do they own now? They own a spot. They cannot be kicked out of that spot. Like, the Riot can't just take their 10 million and be like, okay, bye-bye, like, you lost to fucking Tyler One's Academy, like, amateur team. That's not what Valorant style promotion relegation is. Valorant style promotion relegation is the league would expand to 2 more teams, and those 2 teams, so instead of 10, it would be 12, and those 2 extra teams would come from tier 2. And those 2...
The problem with that is, like, then you're asking Riot to give out another $6 million.
Spots for, let's say, it's a 12-team league now, and the bottom 2 teams would be those like temporary spots. Those spots are not owned. Those spots are promoted and relegated between every single split or every single year. Okay, sounds like a cool idea, right? In theory. I had to think about this for literally 2 seconds to realize, like, there's so many problems with it. Like,
there's a million problems.
The upside is that you're gonna get to see the top academy teams play with the LCS teams. You also have the opportunity for those academy teams, for the tier 2 teams, if they're...
I mean, he'll probably get into this, but like when you win the academy, there's a good chance a lot of the players get plucked up, right? So then the shell of that team is what would be promoted. This is just, it's not good at all, which is one of the reasons why he's saying, like, I don't like this. And it also serves, the PA should not have put this in.
They're really, really good. If they deserve to be...
I mean, the main thing is just this. The LCS teams bought franchise slots. And if you do this Valorant style promotion and relegation, you have now devalued the slots of the LCS teams that paid the 10 million to franchise. Like that's pretty much as simple. That's like why this can never be done, because the teams would have to agree to it. Like you can't. The reason that they bought these franchise slots is because there was a limited amount of franchise. There was a limited amount of spots in the league. If you're gonna let random teams come in like Wildcard Gaming and get a spot in the LCS, join part of like the revenue pool and all that for no fucking money at all in comparison to what you put in, like of course it wouldn't be fair.
A top team, they can make it to Worlds. That's a Valorant style promotion relegation. Actually, in Valorant, tier 2 teams can make it to Worlds. That's pretty crazy, right? So that's pretty cool. You and your 4 Challenger or your 4 Bronze friends can make a team, and you can make it all the way to Worlds if you're good enough. That is competitive. I love that idea. Now, in practice, this...
So you could have an idea where, like, just like there's play-ins at Worlds, you could take the top academy team out of every major or every region and say, hey, you guys duke it out and play a little tournament for 1 spot, and 1 Challenger team makes it in. That could be interesting.
This is actually pretty shit, because think about it. The bottom teams in LCS already don't deserve to be here anymore. They paid $10 million a long time ago, and they checked out like 4 or 5 years ago. I think that
Wait, that was literally right when it started. Okay, base. I mean, that's his take on it. Shit, respect.
Too many teams in the league, and there's not even 50 LCS level players in the region, including imports. So why would we want to even further dilute the league by adding 2 even worse teams? In my opinion, it's the opposite that needs to happen. Instead of adding 2 spots, they need to somehow find a way to cut 2 teams from the league. I think that LCS should...
They should have found a better clip where it shows like Immortals being 1 in 15.
Have 8 teams, and that would, it's a supply and demand problem. There's too many spots, and there's not enough competitive teams to fill them. And that's why you have teams that are checked the fuck out. They're kind of coasting, and they're ready to, they want to sell. I don't think that anyone in LCS wants to play with or against people who want to get out of the league. Like, that's just not...
That's tough to say that people don't want to be in the league. The players
that's
certainly
my opinion on that.
I agree. Just kick TSM out. Don't even give them like their franchise feedback or anything. Just kick TSM out for fun. Good take.
I don't think this is reasonable at all. I don't think so. And secondly, it's going to dilute the value of the 10 existing.
He's saying that kind of joking, but kind of serious, because TSM was one of the most poorly run franchises, and they're one of the loudest ones. And because Reginald was such a major investor in the beginning of the LCS, he's going to hold, whether or not he should, more sway in what's going on. He's also one of the most public figures as far as ownership, being the first one to be published in Forbes. 30 for 30 or whatever it was called, the Millionaires by 30. Yeah, it's a tough spot.
Spots. That's what Riot said in their reply to this as well. Okay, so Riot commit to a revenue player pool of player salaries for $300K per NACL team per year. I'm open to being wrong on this, but my very hot take.
I mean, they already get 2.7 million that they're supposed to use to help their entire team. And yeah, if you use 0.3 of that to field your challenger team, then you're okay.
On this is $300K per NACL team means a minimum of $60K per.
Nope, that math is correct, Doublelift. I got you. I ran the numbers. 300K divided by 5, 6. Yep, nope. All works out.
Academy per tier 2 player salary. That's just crazy to me. I don't think that the worst academy players, I don't think that you can be picked up and you can be the 99th best player in the league. I put that in quotes because it's not actually like that.
Yeah, true. There's streamers that are probably better than those players, etc. No, I 100% get them here.
There's nepotism. There's people Let's just say you're the 99th best league player in America. I don't think that you should be getting paid $60K per year as a minimum. I'm a huge believer in having obviously a reasonable floor. I don't know what the reasonable floor is. In my head, it would be $30K per player. But having the ability to make up to $100K per year if you're really fucking good. What happened to tournaments with actual prize pool? Why can't tier 2 be tournaments with prize money where the players can win a lot of money? And it's highly motivating. It's highly fucking motivating when you enter a competition and $20,000 in your pocket is on the line. Yeah, I'm a pretty big believer in that personally. I think it would be fun for the viewers to watch. I also think this is a pretty contentious topic, but I think that when you allow the salaries to be so
Look,
high,
you know what motivates people? Borderline homelessness. Let me tell you, as somebody who existed in early esports, what really motivated you is knowing that you could be relegated at any point and you're going to have to fucking go back to school 2 years behind the rest of your classmates because you spent a couple years doing this esports, idea and it didn't end up working out. Fear of homelessness. Now that is a key motivator.
Well, yeah, they say what's the mother of innovation, right? You need to be in a desperate situation to really want to change it. And what is it? Comfort is the bane of innovation is the other one, where if you're comfortable, you're not going to really feel stronger. Yeah, you do want people to be hungry, but you also want them to be accomplished pros. The best fighter is not a pissed off fighter. It's the happy fighter, the one who knows he's got it made, wants to keep going. Is yeah, this is sick. Mike Tyson had a lot of hot takes on this, but yeah, absolutely. I feel like anyone who's part of entertainment, you should be given a comfortable living wage. Yeah, I mean, they should be able to live. They're already getting really good. At least the teams have invested in forums, the different venues where their team can practice, and that's one of the things that they did. They spent a lot of money, maybe too much, but maybe not enough, honestly, either, is the other option. But, for example, Liquid got some major investors and they built themselves this multi-million-dollar training facility. You have that. You used that money to invest in your players, to grow the system, get stronger and stronger. You might feel like you don't have enough to feed everybody, but that's what happens when you get this stipend. Well, I'm just going to say 3 million, so I don't need to say 2.7 all the time, or about 2.7. When you get $3 million as a stipend, it was supposed to balance everything out. But what they're doing is they're taking all these investors who are like, hey, we like your team, we want to get involved with LCS, we need to do this. The only money that actually definitely needs to be in one spot is the money that Riot gives you. So they go, all right, that's our Riot money, we'll spend it on Riot things and then take the other money and spread it somewhere else. That does happen. And it becomes very, very uncomfortable.
Academy, there's actually more negatives to being promoted to LCS than positives. Think about it. Right now, or 1 year ago, I shouldn't say right now, a year ago, 2 years ago, if you're an Academy player, you have a cushy job and you're getting paid like 70 or 80K a year, up to like 100, maybe
cushy.
100K a year, right? If you're a good Academy player. I think that there are a lot of players that have flickered in and out of the bottom tier of LCS. When they get promoted from that Academy position, they come into LCS and it's like test time. And they could be good, but most of the time they get completely ran down and they're not LCS level. And then their value drops dramatically after.
That needs to be part of the system, though. You need to manage expectations for these players, saying, yeah, you're going to struggle at first, just like a rookie in any league does, right? For example, you take rookies in the Major League Baseball, even though they've gone through rookie ball, single A, double A, triple A, sometimes summer league. They may have gone through 5 different leagues on top of college, high school, right? So maybe we're going to call it 7 leagues that a player might have to climb up to get to the Major League Baseball. That's their 8th league, and they will still get strung up their first time out, right? They just haven't seen a Major League fastball. They haven't seen a Major League curveball, and they're going to get beat, and then they're going to learn, and with 1,000 at bats, they're going to get stronger and stronger. Even someone, take someone like Michael Jordan, whose work ethic was incredible, right? But he goes to double A, and by the end of the season, you could just see him getting stronger and stronger. Every single one of his coaches was like, yeah, that guy's going to be a pro. If this guy sticks with it, he's going to make it to the major leagues. A 31-year-old baseball player who hasn't made it, like, yeah, they're going to suck for a bit, and then they'll learn and get better and get stronger. This is going to be the natural progression.
Afterwards, like, their value drops like crazy afterwards because people saw them perform poorly in LCS. Why risk it? Like, why risk getting promoted to LCS when you could just take the guaranteed cushy academy salary?
I think if this is true, then it's endemic in NA culture about failing, and it's unfortunate. But things do happen like that. We do put a lot of pressure on people, and this region supports pro esports worse than every other region, right? It is an encouraged part of Eastern cultures, China, Japan, Korea, right? That is a pinnacle job you can get, and you have 100% support. In Europe, it's very close to that, very, very close. In North America, still more than 50% of the families of pro players don't support their kids' lifestyle choice, and that needs to change, right? And that is culturally, that goes across everything. You've got people, a lot more keyboard warriors in this country than anywhere else. They're gonna be happy to flay you alive on something like Twitter, and we pay too much attention to it. And look what happened to Danny, right? Danny was already susceptible, you could argue, but he was not ready for MSI, right? That player was great with a good team. He had a lot of promise available to him. And the fact that they won Spring Split last year was probably the worst thing that could have happened to him. JoJo and Danny were good. They needed another season. They needed one more season to be shown like, hey, you're still not the top dogs. Let them get hungry. And instead, summer, JoJo was already like, I'm the best player here. And Danny was feeling the pressure because he just got crushed at MSI. And the whole time he's dreading, what's going to happen when I go back to Worlds again? If I get crushed again, I'm going to have 37,000 posts that say I fucking suck, and they are going to hang me out to dry. And ultimately that leads to his mental crumbling on top of the other factors that are going on with everything. There's so much to that situation, but that sort of situation needs to or that culture needs to change. Right, I should just work with universities, colleges, and do a formal program for scholarships with standards. Well, there are scholarships. There's almost 200 scholarships available. But yeah, they need to. They are investing in the collegiate scene. There's still not many viewers, right? Most collegiate games get 100 viewers, and that's it. So there's not very much money to be had there. It's not like NCAA basketball or anything, but it is a road, and these players can go up there. But largely, these teams want, just like in soccer, they want the 17-year-old player. Right? They don't want the 21-year-old, 22-year-old prospect. They want the 16, 17-year-old prospect, especially when they see something like Danny and JoJo do so well. Same for professional play standards. People should know what to expect before agreeing to anything and not have the rug pulled out under them. Yeah, 100%. And largely one of the issues as far as the rug being pulled out from under them, most of the ownership groups, well, I don't want to say ownership groups, the people in charge of these franchises have no management experience. None, right? Like, what does Reginald have as far as business acumen? He was an ex-pro player that invested in the LCS when it was small and it got big. That doesn't mean that he's a capable manager, and everyone has referenced TSM as, the most hostile and toxic work environment you can imagine. This might be a radical thought, but it should be tied in with the report honors in good standing, because those people should also set examples. Yeah, I mean, you should. There's a code of conduct, right, for every league. Every league has something as far as, how much weed is acceptable, which is pretty unanimously 0. You can't be on camera getting drunk, and most teams wouldn't want you to get drunk anyways. Like, why are you poisoning your body? If you're a professional athlete, we want you at 100%. Pro streamers is different though. There would be actual consequences to Tyler getting banned. Yeah, it's true, but he's a content creator. He has nothing to do with the professional league. Now, the moment that he actually owns a challenger league, right? If he becomes part of the LCS ownership groups in whatever way, then yes, then you're accountable. But as long as you're just a streamer, it has nothing to do. People can play League of Legends and do other things, and that's fine.
Like, I just know that is like an attitude held by some. You have a lot to lose. You have your job insecurity in LCS is so much higher than it is in Academy. So that was an old system. I guess I'm rambling right now because within the new system, I don't think it would really be an issue. It's just, like I said, I think 300K per team is like a little bit high. Allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. I think Riot
what's the revenue from NACL?
It's a good idea. Basically, what that means is like partnering with like Maryville University, partnering with like different tier 2 orgs to split the costs, but also to like split the benefits. So there's more.
This is good, right? Like. And you have Roger Morris was the first team to like super invest in esports scholarships, so they became a tier 1 esports program for League of Legends, and Maryville came right behind. And so these teams have very viable rosters, and if those players can dip in the college and Challenger League at the same time, or if you can just get some combination with a school, a university, which is a highly profitable organization, that's a great idea. That's exposure for the college, and it's reducing some of the costs from the team. That's great. Partnering up, I think, at least at surface level, it looks good.
More collaboration, and it's just easier on the LCS orgs to dip their toes into tier 2. Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. This is where
this one was insane, bro. It's like, where did they get this one? Like, yeah, and if you win, you can just think, could this not be exploited at all? Like, you're just guaranteed a contract for the whole next year, but you don't actually have to fucking play well. You can just run it down on purpose, be doing other shit. Like, what does that mean? Guaranteed salaries?
All right, so they're trying to create an incentive system for the players who actually win. The incentive is supposed to be that they get funneled up into pro. The point of this and why it's different, you have one team and a second team, then yeah, you're going to have this rift. But if you have one roster and you're just giving the other people, your bench players, a chance to play, this isn't an issue, right? They're still all on the main roster. You all get treated like professionals. This creates a divergence between the players within the same organization, where they're feeling like, I'm glass ceilinged because, or I could be the second best top laner in the league, but if my team has the first best top laner, then I can't play, right? And so you're trying to give this guy an incentive for winning. How about just make a prize pool, right? Get people to want to win. That should be easy enough, right? Here you go, team. Instead of giving everybody, what if, I have an alternate take, right? Rather than giving every team $3 million for operating costs, what if we took away $100,000 from everybody and made that $1 million prize pool for the league, and that they have to give half of that to the players? So the organization will instantly get back $500,000. Boom, you've just paid for all your players, or at least the vast majority of your players, for winning, and that player feels like they've gotten their piece of the pie, right? That they've earned themselves $100,000 bonus for playing well. That seems pretty good. I'd rather see them make less money, or I'd give away less money and then feed it in there, rather than just handing more money to these teams that have shown that they can't, that they don't know how to use it.
This one is so ill, man.
I started questioning. I'm like, what does that mean? So then I had to clarify with Philip. Basically what that means is that the 5 Academy players who win are guaranteed to have a job for the next year. And I was so curious, like, who wanted this rule? Is it like the, the Academy champions, C9? Like, I'm not trying to point fingers. Like, I just, like, don't understand, like, who wants this rule?
Wait, is that even Academy? Because I read this as Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for the 5 players who win the LCS finals each year. What part of this is Academy? I didn't even know that this was...
Yeah, this is not meant for Academy. This is people who win LCS.
Academy as well. I assumed that this was just LCS minimum contracts if you win LCS finals.
It's a free market. You can be completely hard carried.
Yeah, it completely changes what this is, whether or not it's talking about if this is supposed to be the NACL winners are supposed to guarantee. Because the first time I read this, I assumed they were talking about NACL, which I think is what Doublelift is doing. But yeah, as written, it just says LCS players will be guaranteed a job.
To winning Academy finals. It's a competitive market. I don't think anyone should be guaranteed a contract. There are times where people win LCS.
And they suck. Bro, Piotrek just won Worlds. Like, imagine if he was just guaranteed a contract in LCK because he won. Like,
It's too soon, maybe, because he won Worlds and he wasn't that good, and he got guaranteed a contract here and underperformed. Sensitive subject.
The next year they don't have a team. There are times where people win LEC, I think, and they don't next year they don't have a team. I think like Emperor and like Hybrid had that happen to them. It's a competitive market. I don't know what to say. If you're good, you will be picked up. You institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their spots. Okay, so basically what this means is like you have this org. Your name is fucking Fred. You made Fred Esports. And
3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together.
And you have a roster, and all those players won. Those players have a spot in NACL, and you're Fred, and you're like, man, fuck these guys, I don't like them. So you kick all 5 of them, and you get 5 new players, and you still have that spot in NACL. Under this rule...
So one of the problems with this as well is then you can't sell off the players, or you can't upgrade them, right? You'd be forced to keep 60% of your roster intact in the Academy League. Like, what if it's, players... We'll say the 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, and 50th best players are on your Academy team. They obviously should all get spots on the LCS stage, or... whether or not you keep them, there's probably some upgrades there for your team, but they deserve a chance to play in the LCS. Why are you forcing them to stay as 3 of them staying on the Academy roster? I feel like this is just awful.
Well, those 5 players, if 3 out of 5 of them choose to stick together, they actually own that spot. To kind of prevent you from having like shitty ownership, or to have a situation where like a team just completely nukes the whole team. And
cool. Then if they want that, then the teams don't have to pay the fucking salaries. Then like, what's the point of having the organization? Like,
yeah, this
they can pay themselves salaries if they want to own the slot.
Spots. I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest. And because I don't feel strongly one way or the other, and I can see like an upside and downside. Like I don't really know, and I don't really care. Anyways, I talked to Philip about all these, and the funny thing is, as you can tell, I don't really fully agree with any of these. Actually, I only really agree with the affiliates cost sharing thing, and that thing is like already happened. So
wait, so all of them are wait, so he's part of the walkout?
Yeah, this is what's hilarious. He's supposed to be presenting a unified front, and he's like, I don't agree with anything except for the one thing that's already happening.
Walkout, he's like, these are all garbage. I'm standing with the garbage. Nice, man.
Why did I vote yes on the walkout?
Yeah, exactly. Answer this question, bro. Like, look at his face, bro. He knows. He's like, shit. He's fucking sorry. He's like, why did I vote yes on the walkout? Like, this is just horrible.
Why did overwhelming people vote yes? Actually, I'll tell you guys a story of
not just overwhelming, 50 out of 50.
The day we're scrimming until 8. Every LCS team is scrimming, and we have a meeting in 30 minutes. And I'm looking at the LCS Player Association chat. It's a Discord channel, and I'm thinking there is no fucking way that that even 26 people are going to show up. You understand how lazy LCS players are? After scrim,
You know how little they fucking care about Academy?
everyone's tired or hungry. You think that a bunch of people are going to show up to this thing and we're going to have 26 out of 50 LCS players vote? There's 15 Korean.
This is what everyone said, and then at least the story from the inside was literally everyone showed up, and they called it overwhelming majority. And the rumor was that it might have been as much as 50 votes out of 50.
There's a shit ton of other
We'll see what he
imports.
says.
I think they have less skin in the game. They should care less. Just
Of
naturally.
course they should care less. 100% agree with this.
From the region, like, understandable, right? Like, a lot of them don't even speak English yet perfectly. To have 26 people even show up is a fucking miracle. Okay, so I show up to this thing and I have my expectations really low. I'm thinking 10 people are going to show up, including my team. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, like, maybe 10 or 15 people are going to show up, and it's even if we all vote yes, there's not going to be enough people even in this fucking meeting to make anything happen. And, like, sure enough, the Discord server fills up fucking fast. So fast. And I'm thinking, like, what is going on? This is crazy, like, how many people are here. And then we do a head count. Philip just...
I just want to take a moment to appreciate that you can see why he hasn't followed here, right? Like, it's interesting when he has his Twitter up and it's showing like who you might want to follow, and the fact that he hasn't clicked these buttons. These are very interlaced personalities in the LCS scene, and he's choosing not to. This is how far above the scene Doublelift thinks he is.
It's a head count, and we are 46 out of 50 players are here. 46 LCS players. Like, that's just insane to me. Like, how is this possible that 46 out of 50 players showed up? The last 4 people trickle in, I think, and it's just all 50. Literally all players showed up to the meeting. I was absolutely amazed. If you
That's great.
asked me to bet something, I would have.
Bro, the LCSPA must be so fucking pissed with this video.
Yep.
You know, like, Philip Aram, like, saw it's like Doublelift to streaming. Like, he got like some fucking Discord message like Doublelift to streaming. Doublelift to streaming, and he is like saying that like all of our demands are bullshit, and he also wants to play in 2 weeks. You know, Philip Aram was watching this stream like, fuck! Doublelift, turn it off! He was like the Walter White in the car just screaming when this stream was happening. What the hell?
Probably bet my life savings, actually. Yeah, I would have bet my life savings that there's no way all 50 players are going to show up. Maybe this is what 26 do, right? For the majority, and all 26 vote yes, but all 50? Like, what the fuck, bro? That was crazy. And so, you know, I was like, something's going to happen. Like, I could feel the magic in the air that night. I was like, something's going to happen here. I did not expect this at all. I don't think anyone expected this. I think Philip was like, what the fuck? There's like way more people here than I expected. Like, players are so lazy. Yeah, that's the story of how I lost all my life savings. So anyways, you know, the vote happened. It was overwhelming. I'm not going to say what the vote was. It was overwhelming majority. I walked out of that meeting feeling like pretty happy. We walked out of that meeting and everyone was... I think it was, there was a little bit of tension, I feel like, but I wanted to say one thing, which is I don't think there's a world where LCS just like continues as normal. Like, how much of a joke would it be if you guys watched LCS?
Look at Dom's face right here. He's just getting ready for the fireworks, man. Oh my goodness. He's like, what is Doublelift about to say? Now, I appreciate Doublelift that he's like, yeah, well, like, people want someone to say what's real. And it's true, we do want someone to say what's real. But he's about to call the LCS a joke. Like, this is what Dom's like, what's going to happen here? Let's see.
LCS just starts. The stream starts. The players walk out. There's like the casters have to ignore that happening. There's like no coverage of it, and then the games get played between like 50 bronze players. How is that gonna happen? Like, just explain it to me, guys. Like, who's gonna want that to happen?
Bro, I would want that shit to happen, bro. I would co-stream the fuck out of that. I'd be like, this is my region, baby. This is what it's became.
A lot of people have said that they want this because the fiesta would be fun to watch.
I kind of like we're talking about like doomsday scenarios. Like, okay, what happens when, you know, if there's like defectors? What happens if we're like getting pressured to be replaced on LCS Day? I'm like, guys, there's like no way LCS is gonna happen. To me, I think it's an empty threat that Riot was like looking at the teams to replace the rosters with like scabs. It's for
why would that be empty if the player? I mean, if the PA's requests are all bad and the response from Riot was like, here's the reason why each of these sucks. And then there was the one that Doublelift agreed with, and it was like, this is already in place. They've already responded. They don't intend to back down to these. These are not the fixes that are going to save the league.
Worlds, by the way. Summer Split is for Worlds. So you're going to say the standings for Worlds the first week of LCS?
Dude, you know what it feels like? You know what this like LCS walkout and strike feels like? It's like when you would take classes in school and you do like mock trials, where you'd like pretend to be on a trial, but it's like there was nothing actually on the line. But like you would do this like whole like, you know, walkthrough where you would have everyone play the role that you would in a courthouse. This is what it feels like to me. This doesn't feel real.
Like fucking 1/9
it's
of
gonna
the
be
regular
real.
season games is played by just complete giga randoms? I don't think so. And then Ryan
Just get
came
some
out with
Giga
that
Gamers
response.
in. We're good.
At this point, you guys probably already read the response. LCS ended up getting pushed back.
It's
2
Model
weeks.
UN, yeah.
Ultimately, it's not really up to me. I voted yes. So
It's not up to me, but let me talk my disclaimer about how I voted yes, and I wish I hadn't.
I never explained exactly like what I'm standing for, I guess. What I think we all voted on is not these bullet points.
Yeah, all right. This is going to be smart. We're not voting on the bullet points. We're voting to stand in unity to show that we want to have a tier 2 system. This will be good. This is going to be it's unapologetic, and yet it can be seen as an apology.
I don't want to speak for everyone, but my feeling is that we didn't vote on these bullet points. We didn't say, yes, we support all of these bullet points. We want Riot to support the tier 2 scene, not kill it, basically.
But here's the issue, right? And this is where teams are. There's going to be some discord, some dissonance between teams and players. You have teams, players, and Riot, right? And outside sources, investors, and fans. Teams are the ones who pulled the plug here, right? This is an issue that players should have with their teams, not necessarily with Riot. Riot's giving you $3 million to operate things around your team, and then you can make your main team work. $3 million, and they can't make it happen.
And especially
That's a team
in
issue.
the way that they killed it with no.
Yeah, no, they like the LCS players are like, hey, we care about those academy players. You guys should know that we care about those academy players. And then Riot is like, okay, well maybe we're just gonna delete LCS and you guys won't go to Worlds, and then we'll see how much you care about it. And then they're like, no, just kidding. We just want to play LCS. It was a solid 2 weeks. Everyone got their shit together. But yeah, we were just joking with that whole thing. We care about them, just not that much. Like we don't want to actually lose anything for those motherfuckers. So hey, just start up LCS in 2 weeks. We'll pretend, let bygones be bygones, and you can even cut our salaries if you want. Like, it's gonna be a completely different thing, bro. It's so much different.
Notice with no discussion, and in fact just lying to Philip's face about it, lying to the Players Association and getting away with that. We needed to take a stand. I'm surprised. I'm not like super welling with pride, like, oh my god, this is like a revolution, but like I'm honestly just pretty surprised that like we're just sitting here in the comfort of our keyboards, guys. Like we're not actually like doing anything. So people are like, man, so brave, like so based. We're sitting at our keyboards, we have our headsets on, we're listening to Philip talk, and he, we cast our vote. It takes 5 minutes. It's and ultimately, like what we're asking for isn't even really that crazy. It is that we want Riot to support the tier 2 scene.
So I have an alternate take. They want Riot to support, and that's where that's where it needs to end, because Riot needs to offer support in a different fashion. They need to give a competitive practice tool. They need to give chrono break to the teams. They need to give the teams access to medical personnel so that they can make sure that everyone in the league is being taken care of, and someone that is adjudicating that the team's a sort of PR, well, I don't want to call it PR, but human resource that is available to the teams for the players to make sure that they don't feel like they're being cheated. That is the support that Riot needs to give. It's not the money. Money, yes, they could give some more, but the teams have shown that they're just going to burn it, right? They're just spending it poorly, or literally burning it and putting it somewhere else. And those are unacceptable. And so how can you ask Riot to give more money when the money is being mismanaged? You just need them to create a system where they're not going to patch away your future, okay? Because that can happen. That has happened. Where, for example, Reckless benched himself because it's like, marksmen are bad. My team cannot field marksmen. I cannot play other champions. Bwipo, come in. You can play Garen with this Yumi, and we can win with it. That's what teams should be doing as far as like how deep their roster is and subbing people in patch to patch, things like this. But when your game is specifically patching for the masses, where you're changing the game just to make it different so you can make more skin sales, you make a champion powerful because Arcane comes out or because a skin is coming out, that is the stuff that needs to change if you want to actually make this team. Now, they've publicly claimed, Riot has, that they want League of Legends to be the number 2 sport in the world, bar none, after only soccer, by 2050. And they are doing it by trying to fuel in from the bottom. They're just constantly trying to gain new bottom side players. And like, here's how the game is changing. Yes, you can make some changes to make the game accessible, right? Make Garen and Yuumi not competitive champions. Make them available so that everyone can play. Garen can jungle, mid, or top perfectly easily. Yuumi can play support. You can even put Garen there. Marksman, you can play averagely and just kind of sit back and farm and be useful. It's not a role that requires much from the players compared to the other ones. You can give people the starting tools to play the game right there. Warwick also. Boom. 3 champions. Here you go. You can start learning the game with these champions. And then do everything else for pro and try to balance the game. And every once in a while you can say, all right, we've had some issues or this major thing couldn't be solved. Let's change a whole bunch of items. But when every time you do that, you take the competitive integrity and wash everything. And it's like this entire spring split that just got played was never balanced. 0. Because the preseason that we had was one of the biggest overhauls that we've ever had. And teams never figured out what was good. The whole time Aurelion Sol was OP, but because it got nerfed a couple of times, they thought, it must have been nerfed enough now. But it wasn't. It was just still clearly the best. And you still had to deal with how good Catalyst of Eons was. And it took people forever to realize that Abyssal Mask was just ridiculously overpowered. And eventually one player in one region has success with it. And then it spreads out to a couple other places. And then it's like, this is OP. Yeah, all right. Well, Catalyst of Eons up to 1,300. Oh, no. All right. I guess we're just going to have to completely change this in the summer preseason. We can't have Abyssal Mask building out of Catalyst of Eons because it's too good, right? This entire spring split, nothing was balanced. Nothing. That is unhealthy for professional play, right? Having this kind of just tumultuous up and down where you have to spend just as much time figuring out what's good. I agree that there should be innovation and figuring things out, but the quotes I've gotten, and I won't give any names, but 3 different pros, all different, a pro, a coach, and an ex-player, all said, why would I innovate? Because if I figure something out, Riot will just patch it out. And when you walk, if you guys haven't been to LA before, if you haven't been to Riot Games Studios, when you walk out of the theater, immediately what you see is across the street is the big Riot Punch, and Riot Studios is right there. And you know that they control your life and they can just patch things away at a moment's notice. So you see that, whether or not you're thinking you see it, your brain sees it and it knows there's Big Daddy. That's in charge of my life right there. They are watching over me, and anything that I do can only get me fired, right? Or get me worse. This is what the prevailing wisdom or the prevailing thought is amongst pros. That's not a healthy ecosystem. You should be supporting these players, showing them, hey, we're trying to balance the game. We're trying to make it that we want to see innovation on the pro scene. Lane swapping, probably the biggest example of when this happened, top and bot lane swapping and creating imbalances in the map. And that trickles down to platinum and gold games where there's players who watch LCS and who want to recreate what they see, but then they don't have the mental component that goes along with it, where they start flaming their team, or someone on the team who doesn't watch LCS is like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go to my lane, right? And then you have this obstinate, no, I'm just going to my lane, which, I think you can do better than that. There's better than just my lane. But when you're catering to these people by making changes where bot lane plates don't have the same resistances as top lane, you're forcing people to play. You're penalizing everyone who innovated. This is not good. This is not a good answer at any point. It is my least favorite swap or change that has ever been made to the game, was the fact that they made bot lane have less resistances to force people to put 2 people there. It's like, no, just let people figure it out. That's how the game started. 5 people, 5-on-5, and eventually they figured out it started off with 2-1-2, and then they realized they could have a jungler. And then they tried different things that were good in other sports where you have other games where you had 3 people and tri-lanes with no jungler. Let them innovate. Let them try to figure out what's going on. In truth, the 1-1-2 and a jungler, that is the baseline for how good your team can be as far as getting resources, gold, and experience. Yes, you're splitting them up amongst the team. That's good. There are faster ways to get it. And we saw it with the Scion plays that we just made the video on. The Scion plays at MSI, every single team that made the Scion play in bot lane won and had a 500 gold lead within 90 seconds of the start of the game, right? That just proves that there's more to be done. And it's not just Scion. That's not the only champion that's available to make this play. There are many, 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 many options that can try to make this work. Innovation needs to be rewarded, not stymied. You need to show players that, hey, I want you to practice. Here's a practice tool. Get rid of this asinine policy where you're forcing pros to play in solo queue. Now, I want to talk about that for a second. They just got rid of this requirement. What did the media take of it? And what did all the people say? Oh, man, anyone can play. Bronze players can play in the LCS. That's, at least I don't believe that that's what that is for. It could happen. That is a positive step. Stop making players play games into Diamond. There's no good reason or making them have to get to Diamond 1 or even to Master, whatever the stipulation was. It's been different at different times. Forcing them to play because we think it's cool that your average player can be in a game with a pro. That player is hungry. They want to win. That person's at the pinnacle, top 0.5% already. If they're even having a chance of playing with a pro, they're probably in the top 0.1%. And they're probably hungry to try to get further and to make it to pro. Their win is not, oh, I matched up with Licorice top lane once. No. Their win is, I get to the LCS. And so Licorice, famously, probably the biggest one, is like, I'm going to play the bare minimum to get the rank that I need to hold, and that's it. Because he would rather go 1v1 against his academy player and just practice, drill, or find someone else and be like, hey, someday, you want to play? Let's just go do this matchup 50 times in a row. We'll play Aatrox versus Olaf. Boom. And they just battle, and they go through different things. That is what you want your players to do. You want them to get better. You want expertise. You want something to aspire to. You want to see greatness on the international stage. You don't want to see the player who was forced to invest 250 hours into climbing in solo queue. That's ridiculous.
Okay, so they're not actually asking for any of this.
In a way, I don't really want to be part of the discussion of what that means. But also like that Riot shouldn't be able to make changes like that kills people's jobs with no notice and with no discussion. Yeah, that's why we took a stand. I think I'm doing a pretty bad job of explaining it. But that's just a few of the reasons, I guess, that
I think you did a great job of explaining it, Doublelift. I love everything you said in this.
Yes. What about the team owners? I don't know if I made this clear enough, but I don't think that the teams should be forced to have academy teams. That system benefited nobody, actually. I think that it's on Riot to spend...
All right, he thinks that it doesn't benefit anybody because he's so much better than the next best AD carry that he's never going to get replaced. This is the hubris that's going on in Doublelift's mind, right? And you want that sort of brash arrogance from your superstar players, I think. You want them to think that they're so far above everybody that they're untouchable. I think that's a healthy thing for an AD carry, as long as they're playing within the team, right? But you want them to be like, I'm this good, and I'm irreplaceable. You have that level of confidence. That's a good thing, but it's tone deaf as far as what the majority of players in professional are like.
And a small percentage of their money to support the tier 2 scene and not just kind of kill it as it is and then pawn it off to some random org I've never even heard of with some dog shit name I didn't even see. Like it's like in one of their posts somewhere. But
Team Fish Taco, who like literally was like a couple games away from actually just being an NACL, by the way. They like almost qualified. That was the team with Dardock on it and Lorem. I know that none of these players know this because they don't give a fuck about Academy. And I know this is what, dude, if I were to be on a call of Philip Aram, the type of questions I would ask him would be so, I would just be like, hey, can you name me just like 10 out of the 80 NACL players? Like just their users, like, do you know 10 of the 80 players? That would be the type of shit I would ask him because it's clear they don't actually give a fuck. They just want to have more power because they have no power. And the reason they have no power is because they're not a union. They didn't pay to be part of the LCS the same way that, you know, the organizations had a franchise fee. So yeah, I mean, if you're not putting any skin in the game, then you don't actually get a say. It is what it is.
Into the NACL, and it's like framed like we remain committed and like they killed it. Okay, they killed it. That's all there is to it. They basically just like dumped it in the street and they shot it for good measure. Somewhere in between the old system and that system is like one where Riot like can still have a tier 2 scene exist. Did I watch that one say? I actually did not. And like, I don't know, this thing has been coming to like this really big issue where I guess like I want to say that I care, but if it's the option of standing by Academy and having LCS Summer Split be canceled like Riot threatened, and just
he's just saying it, bro. He's just saying it straight up. Oh my god, Doublelift is so based.
Situation.
If I actually have to, like, if I lose something because of it, then fuck these motherfuckers. Like, who cares about Academy in the first place?
He's about to go, yeah.
I'm letting go. Like, I'm letting go of the situation. I'm not, like, so...
Holy shit, Doublelift, bro.
This is so bad for the PA. We don't want people to cross picket lines, but our marquee player doesn't even believe it.
What are you doing, brother? What are you doing, actually? Dude, he's just, I mean, one thing you can say is he's pretty honest.
Yeah, he's brutally honest.
He's pretty honest. God damn. That's the conclusion.
So gung-ho about it that I'm willing to not play Summer Split. So, like, when Riot threatened to go nuclear, that's a pretty big threat. Like, I think every player was a little bit affected by that. It's like, whoa, Riot's willing to cancel Summer Split? I hope the negotiations go well. I'm just...
How do you, like, no, you don't, bro. You just ruined the entire negotiations.
You also said that you don't support anything that's on this page, so what are you actually negotiating? Again, they're going for the wrong things.
It's a comedy video, actually. It's comedy. Oh my god. How are they going to go well now? You're the most important player. You're the one that has the most power. You think that if Riot knows that you're gonna fucking play, you think the other players are gonna be the ones that are gonna stand up? You think if Doublelift wants to fucking play, the other import players that don't even they're not even from America, they're just here to have a fucking job, and then it's like, oh, you're gonna lose your job, by the way, because, you know, their LCS won't exist. You think those players are gonna suddenly stand up against Riot and be like, well, if that needs to be done, it needs to be done, because we depend on this Academy system. We depend on these demands being met. This is the only thing that's like, you think, no, hell no, bro. You just ruined everything.
I'm gonna applaud Dom for a very positive woke take on everything. I've agreed with every single thing you said so far.
I'm just telling you guys the truth. You don't think that everyone knows that? Like, it's just it is what it is, guys. It's like beating a dead...
Yeah, dude, but you're not supposed to say it, brother. But well done, because I agree. I think this whole thing, it's like I said, it's a mock trial.
An agreement that the old system sucked. The old system is not the way. I think let's find a new system where Tier 2 can exist, and there can be jobs in Tier 2, and it's not on the teams, but it is more of like a free market where a team like this guy's Toast's team can be made and out of nowhere, because somebody wanted to be in Academy. They actively are seeking to compete in Academy, not forced to be in there and given a participation trophy, strapped down, kicking and screaming like, you need to find 5 players, bitch, and a coach, and an analyst, and give them food, and da-da-da. And he is trying...
All right, so again, you don't need to supply another coach and analyst and everything else. Your team should be 10 plus players with your positional coaches, with nutritionists, psychologists, all the things that go around, the support staff that makes a team happen. I don't expect Doublelift to care about what those things offer, because he was self-grown into the best player the region has ever had. Is he the best player the region will ever have? No. Is it the best player they could ever have? No, right? You can be better. Doublelift has made plenty of mistakes. He could have been much better. But I'm not surprised that because he's the best, he's going to feel empowered in this point of view that, like, I grew myself up. I did this all myself. Why do I need support staff? Oh, you know, they might need it, but I don't need it. No, your team should be working together. Your backup should be helping you to get better. You should be helping them to get better, because they can make the team better. These guys should be working together. It should not be a second team with a second coach with a second analyst on what's going on. No. Like, if this week TSM's playing against Golden Guardians, then on Thursday your bench player should be able to play, And when you play on Saturday, you should have a best of 3 match and actually battle the way that you will in international tournaments and all the other things. We don't need to have this asinine schedule that has teams showing up sometimes 3 separate days with a 1 hour plus commute potentially. Hour there, hour back, plus you need to be 3 hours early. So you've got a 5-hour day at least, and that's if you're the first team to play. Right, and then you're forced to stay for post things. You know, that's part of being a professional. That's part of what your contract is paying for. But like to force them to come 3 different days to do that is ridiculous, right? You should have 4 matches, Friday night, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Play a best of 3 against that team. Your second best players, your bench, can play against their bench on Thursday night, so you get stage presence. It's a little bit, right? It's not much viewership, but maybe you get 1,000 people. And you aspire to that, and you say, all right, it's just something. You're building a brand. Maybe some of these players command enough of a brand. Hey, come watch me. Maybe allow them to stream it, or allow the teams to stream it and build their brands. You know, because obviously Riot hasn't created that enough of that. They do want the teams to get their own brands. You want them to get better. You want the players to get better. That schedule change needs to happen on top of the practice tool being better, on top of Chrono Break, and on top of the teams giving what I will call minimal professional privilege to the players as far as support staff.
Really hard to make his games exciting, right? He's done a great job. Just one example, but like that's
Play the outro music
with support from Ryan.
Cut him off, bro. He's not even done making his point, and they just cued the outro music, and it's this fucking song. Holy man, this is too good. This is too fucking good. Oh, this thing is so fucking dumb. I love this, bro. Oh, man. Damn, bro. Shit. That might be one of my favorite. I think that's my favorite Doublelift video of all time. Holy fuck, that was funny. Oh, good luck, man. Good luck.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel out a lot. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep it surreal. Peace.